Hey everybody, this is a PowerPoint I call Intro to Writing, as you might be able to tell here from the screen. This PowerPoint is designed to make sure that you understand and hopefully embrace that writing is a process. Regardless of what you're writing and what the purpose is for your writing, it is always a process. So, that you can see here, writing is a process. We begin with brainstorming and choosing a topic. Okay, anytime you are given a prompt, whether it's for this class or any class, anytime you're given a prompt, you obviously want to kind of brainstorm and think about, okay, what might work for this kind of an essay? And then from there, you're going to choose your topic. We'll dig into that stuff in a little bit. Also, a very, very important part of the step, probably actually the most important step in the process, is making an outline. It's incredibly important for you to make an outline. I can't stress it enough. Then you're going to write a draft. So you take what you've got in your outline and you add some flesh to it. You fill it out. Complete an entire draft of paper, and then you review and edit. So let's dig into some of those things. Brainstorm. So there are a number of ways that you can brainstorm. You can make lists of things that seem interesting to you. You can do some initial research, just a little bit. Don't go crazy with the research, but you can do a little bit of that. A spider or a bubble chart. You may have seen those before. Those kind of look like, kind of like a spider. You've got a big bubble in the center that's a topic, and then you've got those lines that branch off to smaller bubbles that have to do with that topic. And, if you're a visual person, that might be a fun way to go. Or there's my favorite, which is the free write, where, you have some ideas. So for each idea, you just kind of sit down and write. Just write. Don't worry about grammar or structure or anything like that. You just go. You don't even have to do it on a specific idea. You can just write whatever comes to mind, and a lot of times an idea will form doing that. And then we choose our topic. So of all of the ideas that we brainstormed, what is going to work best for the assignment? And of the ideas, what's most interesting to you? I always allow you to choose your own topic because I think it's incredibly important for you to be interested in your topic. You already have to worry about writing a paper. In some cases, you have to worry about research. Why would I want you to also worry about writing about something that you could care less about? So what interests you is a very, very important part of choosing a topic, but you also want to make sure it's going to work for the assignment that you've been assigned. Like I said, making an outline is incredibly important. I know I've said incredibly important a lot of times, but all this stuff is, you guessed it, incredibly important. Make an outline, seriously. Do it. Okay, you start by creating a thesis. This is your one sentence that shows up at the very end of your intro paragraph. That is basically your entire argument or your entire statement that you're making, whatever the purpose of your essay is, in one sentence. If I asked you, tell me what your paper is going to tell me in one sentence, that would be your thesis. Now, you're not going to say things like, in this paper I am going to, because you don't need to do that, and it kind of is weird for the reader to read statements like that. So never include a statement like that. Just say what it is that your argument's about. Then you want to decide how you're going to break that down, how you're going to explain that further. So your thesis is your entire argument or your entire paper in one sentence. The rest of the paper is geared toward actually showing that, explaining it, going into more detail, proving it if it's an argument. So you're going to take some time to decide what will be covered in each paragraph. Then you're going to jot down some of the main points that you're going to use for each paragraph. You should be pretty well aware of the direction that your argument is, or your whatever paper you're writing, the direction that it's going to take. And then you're going to, check and see, okay, is the organization right? The points that I'm making in this paragraph, does that actually belong earlier in the paper or later in the paper? It's much easier to do that at the outline stage than it is to do it at the the review stage, because you don't have as much stuff to move around. You don't have to rewrite sentences because you decided to move things around. So this is basically giving you a roadmap. An outline is kind of like a roadmap. You don't like to leave the house to head somewhere and you're not really sure exactly where you're going and you've got a time limit. If you do that without getting directions first, or without grabbing, the Maps app on your iPhone or whatever, that's not real smart, because chances are you're not going to get there on time and it's a stressful situation. So look at an outline as kind of like a set of directions, or a GPS device, or a Maps app on your smart device, whatever it is. It guides you along the way. And then from here, it's simple. It really is. You write a draft. So you've got your entire paper pretty much planned out. Now you're just taking the journey. You're filling in all the important stuff that you want to fill in, explaining, expanding, providing detail, providing research if necessary. You're really just, making it happen at this point. And you'll notice that it says this step is to write a draft, not obsess over a draft. Okay, this isn't the time that we're reviewing or revising or editing or worrying about grammar. Here's the thing. If you're using a word processor, Microsoft Word, Apple Pages, Google Docs, you're going to get generally little squiggles. A red squiggle if something's spelled wrong, green squiggle if if there's something going on with grammar. Ignore those right now because they're not going anywhere. And even if they were to go anywhere, you have the skills to find those mistakes on your own. Writing, for a lot of people, including myself, is about flow. And if you disrupt that flow because you continuously correct yourself, then you're doing yourself a real disservice, because you're creating a lot more work for yourself. Just write the draft. You can go back and fix it later. Which brings us to the last point: reviewing, revising, and editing. Now, this is a multi-step process. You should not plan to go through your paper one time to determine if anything needs to be added, removed, edited, anything like that, okay? Not a good idea. The first scan, does it all make sense? Is it complete? Is there anything I need to add for clarity or to bolster a point that I'm making? Or does anything need to be removed? The second go around, structure. Is everything organized properly? Does the structure look all right? Is it MLA format, for one thing? But also, is the structure looking okay? And sentence structure a little bit here. I mean, you can kind of tell, but that's really for the third scan, which is grammar and sentence structure. Is everything spelled correctly? Have I used punctuation properly? Is the grammar proper? Or is what I have to say clear on the sentence level as far as sentence structure goes? All those type of things, okay? But as mentioned, it is a process, so just take it step by step. You don't need to rush. Regardless of how much time you have, from my point of view, how much time I assign for you, you're always going to have at least a week to write a paper for an assignment. So plan accordingly. Don't try to sit down and do the entire thing in one sitting, because you're not doing yourself a service. You're not doing yourself a favor in that case. Usually, well, here's what happens. This is actually scientifically proven. If you, say, wrote your outline and then you stepped away from your paper for a while, even a day or multiple days, your thoughts in your subconscious, you're still kind of mulling around what you want to do with that paper. So technically, you're doing work on your paper for however long you set it aside, without actually actively doing anything. And maybe that doesn't offer as much constructive work as if you were to sit down and think about it for 48 hours straight. But work is being done, and that's good. That's good for you. Your brain's kind of putting together thoughts and deciding on what should go into your paper without you even realizing it. So that's a pretty cool little trick. But take it slow. Wisely and slow. They stumble that run fast. It's from the play Romeo and Juliet. We all know what happened when they rushed into things without thinking about it and taking their time. They both did. So the main idea here, though, and one of the main things I want you to take out of this class is that writing is a process. And I don't care that I've repeated that a gajillion times, because you need to understand. You really do. Writing is a process. Take your time. No matter how much time I give you for an assignment, you have time to spread things out. Figure out a topic that's going to work for you. Make an outline. Don't skip that step. And when you're writing your first draft, don't worry about your grammar, your sentence structure, anything like that. Okay? So that is my PowerPoint for an intro to writing, specifically treating writing as a process.